Hello and welcome to Data Viz Made Easy. My name is Chris Leslie and I'm your host. So I want you to take a second and imagine something for me. Let's say that you're an executive. Here you are. It's a pretty good picture, right? And you're about to head to a meeting. And you have about, like 5 minutes. And this is a meeting that you're going to have with your evaluator. And they're going to teach you something, tell you a little story, and provide you with some evaluation findings, something like that. They sent you a report in advance so that you could prep, which is great. Now, you have 5 minutes, so you go ahead and you open up the email with the report, and you see something like this. And it's wall-to-wall text over and over again, over and over again. There's nothing to differentiate what's important. It's hard to skim. The conclusions are at the end, but they're probably interspersed throughout. It's really a hard kind of document to get into 5 minutes before your meeting. So you're not going to get a lot of value there. And this is the kind of normal challenge that makes people get annoyed with evaluators, with researchers and other kind of data people when they provide reports like this, like boring, generic, kind of wall-to-wall text. Now, we fix this, at least make it a little bit better, by making it skimmable. And to do that, we can use visual hierarchy. And visual hierarchy is one of these kind of just basic graphic design domains, things that you should learn more about if you want to design better reports and create things that people will actually appreciate. So some of this stuff comes from this book, Graphic Design for Everyone. I found it at Barnes & Noble one day. I really like it. So I go back to it every once in a while because it's a good kind of basic jump into graphic design elements that you can learn and figure out. Visual hierarchy is really about making things stand out, the things that you want to stand out. And it's all about prioritization. So you want to give priority to the things that are important. You want people to take away things from what you're sharing. And sometimes that can be hard to do if all you're doing is really just you have header lines and text and everything just looks the same. Here are a few different ways that the book goes through. Like you can create some differentiation using size, weight, uppercase, position, color, contrast. You can also use different color blocks in how you set up the page. I've talked about in a past video about white space. It's another way that you can prioritize certain areas, certain pieces of text. And we can also use scale as a way to prioritize and to organize the information on a page. But let's take a closer look at how this is done in reports. And instead of looking at a real report today, we'll just look at a couple of templates here in Canva. These are templates that if you search for SDG reports templates, they're not bad for this kind of stuff. They're a good starting point. But I'm going to show you two different ones because they're going to show you how to make something maybe a little bit more skimmable. One I think is a little bit better than the other. Neither are perfect. There's some color issues, but that's an aside. Right now, let's focus on the visual hierarchy. So here's one SDG progress report. This is case number 1, table of contents, and I want you to just get a feel for this report. And if you were going to skim it 5 minutes before a meeting, what would you take away? It's all generic stuff, so it's not real content, so don't worry about that. All right, here's the introduction. If you were to look at this, maybe you'd read it, maybe you'd skim it, then you'd just start going down. Message from your leaders, you'd probably go from there to the message, then see the priority SDGs. You'd look at this, you would totally skip that paragraph. You'd probably skip these paragraphs unless they were interesting. Measuring progress, you wouldn't read that. You'd try to figure out what's going on with the table. You'd jump to the chart because there's a chart. Then you'd see these numbers. They would catch your attention and you'd read it that way. Then with next steps, you might actually read through these, probably not this paragraph. The conclusion, you'd probably jump, boom, boom, and head off to your meetings. Acknowledgements, you don't need to worry about that. Who reads acknowledgements 5 minutes before a meeting? Now, let's jump into another one. So that's one way. You can see certain elements, you can see certain ways that color was used to highlight different areas and to draw attention to certain pieces of the document. It's really about drawing the eye and kind of carrying somebody through a document. Now, that was at one level. There's some white space, there are definitely lists, there's some images, there's some color blocks. That's great. There are some places like here where we're using color and size to differentiate so that a message gets read as alongside the picture, because somebody's going to read that through a skim. Now let's look at a different example. This one I think is a little bit better because it adds an additional layer and it makes it even more skimmable. And that layer is not in the table of contents, but in the introduction we can see. This is because this is a template and they're based on the same data, the same kind of generic report template. It has the exact same text. So it's essentially same thing as we saw the last time, except there's another element. And that element is this like larger colored size first paragraph. So now when you go from table of contents, you go to introduction, you're going to read that because it's bigger. Message from the leaders, you're going to read that, then you're going to read this. Priority SDGs. Okay, here's a message. Now here are the priorities. You're going to maybe look a little bit deeper, but you're going to see them quicker. Measuring progress. Here's another block up here. You're going to look at that. Probably not this. Maybe you'll dive into this. Here we have charts. We have blocks. People, their eyes get drawn to charts. Their eyes get drawn to elements that kind of pop out in terms of larger pieces and others. Next steps. So now not only are we going to see the text, we're going to actually read this first couple of lines. And then the conclusion and highlight and this kind of call to action at the bottom. And again, we're not reading that last page. But you can see how somebody might actually interact with this kind of work if you structure it differently. And it doesn't even take all that much. It's just when you look at your reports, don't just think about if you're sharing all the information that you're trying to share. Think about how people are going to read it on a daily basis. Are they only going to have a few minutes to glance at it? If they only have a few minutes to glance at it, are they going to get any information? This is where using descriptive headers in your charts, this is where pumping up the size of important elements. The idea is you want somebody to be able to skim and have a story. It'll be a different story than if they read it. They'll have a more comprehensive understanding of what you're trying to share if they read the whole thing. But if they don't read the whole thing, what are they going to take away? And you have control over that if you design it that way. So that's it. A couple of easy tips. You don't have to use templates like this. You could start integrating it with your own stuff. And if you like stuff like this, go ahead and take my Canva Jumpstart course. It is absolutely free nowadays. Just visit freshspectrum.com/Canva-Jumpstart and you can go there and join for free. Go ahead and subscribe to this channel. And yeah, I'll talk soon. Have a good one.